Imagine a city where death arrives faster than help, where entire families collapse within hours, where doctors are powerless, authorities are overwhelmed, and an invisible killer moves silently through every street, carried not by the wind, but by something far closer to home. In the middle of this chaos stood one man, calm, relentless, and armed with nothing more than a pencil, a notebook, and an idea that no one dared to believe. This is the true story of John Snow, the Victorian doctor who used a simple map to stop a deadly epidemic, and in doing so, laid the foundations of modern epidemiology, changing the way we see disease forever. Our story begins in London, 1854. The city is the beating heart of a global empire, a hub of commerce, innovation, and immense wealth. But beneath this veneer of progress lies a darker, grittier reality. London is one of the filthiest cities on earth. Its narrow, winding streets overflow with garbage and human waste. The sewers, where they exist, are primitive and often leak directly into the River Thames, the city's primary source of drinking water. Public water pumps stand just feet away from open cesspits, which are essentially giant, unlined holes in the ground filled with raw sewage, and the smell, the stench of decay, a thick, foul miasma, hangs heavy over every neighborhood, a constant reminder of the city's unsanitary state. For decades, this environment has been the perfect breeding ground for a terrifying killer, cholera. The disease sweeps through London like a scythe. Its attacks are sudden and brutal. A perfectly healthy person might feel a slight stomach cramp in the morning and be dead by nightfall. The symptoms are horrific, leading to rapid dehydration that turns the skin blue and leaves victims ashen and shrunken. It's a disease that doesn't just kill, it terrifies. The prevailing medical wisdom of the time, held by the most respected doctors and scientists, is the miasma theory. They believe that cholera, like other diseases, travels through poisonous foul-smelling air. If you can smell the rot, they say, it can kill you. The solution, therefore, is to air out rooms, burn scented herbs, and avoid the city's foulest odors. But one man, a quiet and unassuming physician, disagrees. His name is John Snow. Originally an anesthetist from York, Snow has a keen analytical mind. He is a man of observation and logic in an age often ruled by tradition and assumption. He has a radical, almost heretical idea. Cholera isn't spread through the air, it's spread through contaminated water. He's seen how the disease follows water sources, how it clusters in certain areas while leaving others untouched, regardless of the air quality. He has published papers on his theory, but his colleagues mostly mock him. His ideas are dismissed as eccentric, the ramblings of a man who doesn't understand real science. They point to the air, to the undeniable stench of London, and ask how he can ignore such obvious evidence. But Snow sees patterns that others refuse to see. And when a massive, terrifyingly swift cholera outbreak erupts in the Soho district, he knows this is his moment to prove his theory, once and for all. On the 31st of August, 1854, disaster strikes Soho with unimaginable speed. It starts with a few cases, then a dozen, then hundreds. Within just 3 days, more than 500 residents of the district are dead or dying. The neighborhood descends into chaos. People collapse in the streets, children die in their mothers' arms. Entire households fall silent, one after another, their doors marked with the sign of the plague. Panic grips London. People flee the city, believing the very air of Soho has become a deadly poison. The official response is paralyzed, relying on the failed miasma theory. While other doctors are wringing their hands, John Snow goes to work. He walks into the heart of the epidemic, a calm figure moving through the terror-stricken streets. He goes door to door, a notebook in hand, interviewing the sick, the dying, and the grieving families of the dead. He doesn't ask about the smells in their homes or the breezes from the river. He asks one simple, direct question that no other doctor is asking. Where do you get your water? He methodically records the answers, noting which public pump each family uses. As he collects more and more data, a map begins to take shape in his mind. He returns to his study and begins to draw. He carefully sketches the streets of Soho by hand, marking the location of every house, every business, and most importantly, every water pump. Then, he begins to mark the deaths. For every person who died from cholera, he adds a tiny black line, a tick mark, at their address. At first, it's just a few dozen ticks, but soon they multiply into hundreds, creating a dark, dense forest of black strokes across the page. As he stands back and looks at his creation, a chilling pattern emerges from the chaos. The deaths are not random. They are not evenly spread. Instead, he sees an undeniable, dense cluster of deaths surrounding one single water pump, the pump on Broad Street. Every street, every household, every single tragedy, almost all of them point to the same source. He finds anomalies that only strengthen his case. A nearby workhouse has its own well and suffers very few deaths. A brewery on the same street, where workers drink beer instead of water, has no deaths at all. Snow realizes what no one else will admit. The pump is poisoning the entire neighborhood. Armed with his map and his data, he prepares his evidence and stands before the local board of guardians. He presents his findings, his meticulously drawn map showing the clear correlation between the Broad Street pump and the cholera deaths. The board members are skeptical, even hostile. They laugh at his theory. They are men of tradition, and the miasma theory is the accepted science. They cite famous experts who support it. They accuse Snow of being an amateur, of challenging real science with a simplistic drawing. But Snow refuses to back down. He is not a man easily intimidated. He holds up his map, points to the undeniable cluster of deaths, and makes a bold, urgent plea. If you remove the handle of that pump, lives will be saved by morning. The board is cornered. Their own methods have failed completely. The death toll continues to rise. Reluctantly, and more out of sheer desperation than belief in Snow's theory, they agree to his strange request. On September 7th, officials are sent to the Broad Street pump. A small crowd watches as they use a wrench to remove the handle, rendering the well silent and unusable. The next day, the number of new cholera cases in Soho falls sharply. In the following days, it collapses entirely. The outbreak is over. Snow was right. A later investigation of the pump confirmed his theory in horrifying detail. Investigators discovered that the well for the Broad Street pump had been dug just a few feet away from an old, leaking cesspit beneath a nearby house. The first victim of the outbreak had been a baby living in that house, and the baby's contaminated diapers had been emptied into the cesspit. The sewage had then seeped through the ground and directly into the well water, turning the public pump into a deadly weapon. A single map, created with a pencil and relentless logic, had revealed the source of the epidemic and saved countless lives. In 1855, Snow published his complete research in a book titled On the Mode of Communication of Cholera. It was a masterpiece of medical detective work, yet it received very little attention. The medical establishment was slow to change, and many doctors refused to abandon the popular miasma theory for decades. Tragically, John Snow died in 1858 at the age of just 45, never fully recognized for his monumental discovery. But history has a way of finding the truth. Decades later, as the germ theory of disease gained acceptance, scientists like Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch re-examined Snow's work. They were stunned. They realized that Snow's map had not just solved one outbreak, it had quietly created the foundations of entire fields of science: modern epidemiology, public health mapping, outbreak investigation, and the sanitation reforms that would lead to safe water systems worldwide. Today, his simple Broad Street map is considered one of the most important documents in the history of medicine. It stands as a testament to the power of observation, data, and one person's courage to challenge conventional wisdom. One man, one pencil, one map, and the future of global health was changed forever. But here's the part of the story that almost no one knows. Years before John Snow drew his famous map, another community, in a different part of the world, faced a similarly deadly waterborne disease, and they survived, not because of a map, but because of a mysterious pattern their leader noticed in nature, a pattern that saved his people from extinction. It's a story forgotten by time, a historical mystery that might shock you even more than the story of the Broad Street pump. If you want to hear that episode, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and stay with me for the next chapter. Because the real history of the world is often more dramatic and surprising than fiction. Thanks for watching.